Are you using your company's corporate email account for personal use and personal accounts? This is really a bad idea, and I want to go over some reasons why. Whenever we use our company email account to sign up for personal accounts and services, it really probably at first seems very convenient, but generally it's a bad idea, and there's several compelling reasons why. It might be tempting just to utilize that readily available email address, and this practice really can lead to significant complications and potential risks for both you and your employer. First off, it's just general security concerns. Most of the time in most environments, the email is being managed by the IT department or a managed service provider like what we do. And the thing is that, being it's your biggest risk for most small businesses, we're trying to maintain a very high level of security for these types of services. And whenever you put that out onto another platform for personal use, they may not have those same high level of security, and it really could compromise data for your company. Another is just general privacy issues. If when you're signing up, a corporate email for personal accounts, what's going on is you're unintentionally sharing professional information, even contacts, communication with unrelated third party services. All of these services basically are mining data, or you could call it stealing data from you. And this can potentially violate your company's privacy policies and ultimately confidentiality agreements. And another reason is really just loss of control. Whenever you link your personal accounts to your company email, you really are giving control of those accounts to your employer. And if you got fired or you changed your job role, even, or something happened with that particular email address, you no longer are going to have access to those private accounts. And there's nothing that you're going to be able to do other than convince your employer to turn that account back on, which they may not want to do, to get those accounts back. So you're really no longer in control, and you lose all of those accounts. Another is what I talked about earlier, is data mining and targeted ads. Every one of the platforms that we sign up for is ultimately, stealing data or collecting data, however you want to class it, and they're doing it to give a persona and a better, targeted ads. And whenever we start to expose our work related persona with our personal persona, it really lends itself to a lot of skewed data profiles and really a lot of irrelevant targeted content that'll come your way. Another thing is just inappropriate content. Signing up for personal accounts and sharing those preferences, interests, and sometimes even content that might be suitable for a professional setting may not be for a private setting, and ultimately vice versa. Right? Sometimes you can get that into your private life, get into your professional reputation, and a lot of times that's really not best. Another thing is just ultimate email overload. The average person gets 140 in a business world, gets 140 emails. If you start mixing that with your personal, your Belk account, these newsletters you sign up for, your Facebook, all that, you can have literally hundreds of emails that you have requested. They're not necessarily just what we'd call spam, but you've requested, and they're flooding your inbox, and they're going to affect your overall performance. Talked about this a little bit earlier. It talked about email deactivation. Some companies, they usually, I think all companies at some point will just ultimately deactivate your account when you're no longer there. And you're going to lose access to those personal accounts. Some of them may have, meaningful, personal information like pictures or life events that you've signed up with that account. And once that account's deactivated, you're no longer going to have access to those things. There's also another major factor as we look into compliance and legal issues. And it really depends on the nature of your work and your company and so on and so forth. But more and more, there's regulations and compliance requirements that are hitting and targeting every company. And whenever we use company email for personal accounts, we could inadvertently expose that personal data to these compliance measures and potentially really complicating matters. Another thing I touched on earlier is really the overall professionalism of you and your job and your company. Whenever we start to blur those lines between personal and company items, we're really putting ourselves at risk, not only just from a professional standpoint, but maybe even our job at risk. If your email, your business email, is being associated with things that maybe the company would have a real problem with, that could be grounds for termination. So, in conclusion here, really, it might be tempting to utilize that company email for personal accounts, but the potential risk and complications far outweigh the convenience. It's really advisable to keep that personal and professional digital identity separate, and you want to use dedicated accounts, email accounts, for your personal as well as your business, so that you're not signing up for online services and platforms and mixing the two. That approach is really going to ensure better security, privacy, and control of your personal data, and it's going to maintain that clear boundary between personal and professional life. So, if you've got questions, or if you want to find out more, even maybe how to unwind that, I have some ways that I think might be useful for you. Just hit me up. I'd be glad to help.